We're Cassie.
And Emily.
And this is Book Butts and Chill, a podcast where we talk about books, movies, and pop culture the way that you actually experience them.
This show is for type B readers, people who love stories but don't want the pressure, perfection, or the participation trophies.
Hit follow, grab a drink, and let's talk about it. Today is a big one. If you've been anywhere near BookTok or the Romantasy corner of the internet, which you know that we live in, you have definitely seen the Legends of Thezmarr series. This is a series that has been steadily taking over, building one of the most engaged reader communities that we have seen in a long time.
People are debating characters, dissecting choices, fully investing in this world, and anytime a series sparks that level of conversation, you know something special is definitely happening.
So today we're sitting down with the author behind it all, the mastermind behind it all, Helen Scheuerer, which she is talking to us from New Zealand right now. So we're really thankful she's here to talk about her rise in the space, her writing process, the choices that had everyone talking, and what's coming next.
So if you've read the series, you already know this is going to be a good episode. But if you haven't, this episode might just convince you. We'll try to keep the spoilers semi-light, but also these books have been out, so it's time to catch up.
That's right. All right. Welcome, Helen. We're so excited you're here, clearly.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here chatting with you guys. I'm actually from Sydney. I'm based in New Zealand, so I'm actually an Aussie. But yeah, I've been in New Zealand for the last 7 years or so, and it is a very perfect setting for fantasy authors. I will say that.
Yeah. What prompted the move to New Zealand, by the way, from Australia?
I met a boy.
Oh, classic.
Oh, you don't say.
You hate to say it. You hate to say it, but it does happen.
Yeah. Yeah. To be fair, he's my husband now, so it worked out all right.
There we go. We love that.
Yeah.
Well, that's a pretty good reason to head on over to New Zealand. So we love that. Well, we will get into some questions. We're starting with Legends of Thezmarr, but we know that your catalog spans young adult, obviously in adult romantasy as well. So we will talk about all the things, but I know we'll kind of anchor a lot of the conversation in the Legends of Thezmarr, and then also talk about some exciting stuff that's upcoming. So to start us off strong with our favorite gal, Blood and Steel drops you straight into this world where the women are training to survive in a man's world, which sounds very, very familiar, of course. Mm-hmm. That opening has such a specific energy and tone that felt so ownable. So would love for you to talk us through where Thea's voice came from. Was Thezmarr always going to open with her, or did you think that the entry point to this world kind of shifted as you were drafting it out?
From memory, so I must have written this in 2022, so it's a little while ago.
Fair.
But from memory, Legends of Thezmarr, Blood and Steel opened with a prologue originally. Yep. That was the scene. I'm trying not to share too many spoilers here, but there's a specific scene that is actually a flashback later on in the book, which involves a certain lightning wielder in the courtyard of Thezmarr. And so it originally opened with that. And then we dropped into Thea's point of view. But I think throughout the revision process, I just felt it was much stronger to start with Thea. It was her story, and that opening line where, you know, she knows the date of her own death, basically. I just felt like that was a real punch to start the book with. So that's kind of where I landed.
Oh yeah, that stuck with me immediately. I was like, a prophecy of the day you're gonna die? Oh, say less. I love this. This world is huge though, and I think like immediately a lot of readers are like, oh my gosh, this reminds me so much of A Court of Thorns of Roses or Throne of Glass. And when you're building a series like that, what was the thing you were actually trying to write? Were you trying to write this huge universe like that, or like what was the pitch in your head when you started writing?
Yeah, so I mean, my young adult fiction was still fantasy, so I've always had sprawling worlds. Like I went from a
Right.
trilogy to a quartet in my young adult fiction. So I think the fantasy sprawling world aspect just kind of comes naturally to me, and it's those sorts of books that I read when I was growing up that
Yeah.
really just kind of I love the magic. I love the sense of adventure. I love exploring. And so I wouldn't say I was trying to, replicate anything in ACOTAR or Throne of Glass, but there is something inherently, addictive about those
Yeah.
series. And whether it's, the sprawling world, the characters, the romance, it's, maybe it's the balance of all of those things. But I
Sure.
guess it's that feeling that I was trying to capture. And I actually just really love world building. And so for the first stage of my process, all I'm doing is sort of collating information. And that can be through Pinterest, it can be through travel, it can be, digging down into a world Bible that I create before I start,
Ooh.
because I hate making decisions as I go. I like to have sort of a baseline.
Yeah.
And then as I write, you can explore different stages or different parts of the world. So that's, I wouldn't say I had a pitch specifically in my head beyond wanting it to be sort of this cutthroat world that a woman could rise up in.
Yeah.
That's kind of the vibe.
I love that. I'm always so interested in these world building heavy books and series, and you are such a master at it, by the way.
Yeah.
Truly, like from
Oh,
page
thank
one, you
you.
feel like you are teleported into this world, and I felt like I was watching a movie almost.
Yes.
But I have always been interested in like what the inspiration is behind these really unique worlds, because this world in this series really does stand on its own. So that's so interesting that it was kind of gathered from pieces online versus in real
Yeah,
life and things like that.
The Pinterest is so funny. I even don't know if we've ever heard an author say that, but that is amazing because aren't we all just on Pinterest doing the same
Yeah,
thing?
we're all just girls on
Yeah,
Pinterest.
yeah, exactly. And you can see so much more like detail of little things if you work out what you're searching for. Like I'll always start on one topic. Like maybe I just Google or Pinterest mountainsides,
Mm.
but
Yeah,
then you kind of go down a rabbit hole of all the different kinds of mountains, all the different type of terrains, and it just like layer by layer becomes more rich and more
yeah.
like immersive.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, I need to go back to Thea because she is one of my favorite heroines in Romantasy, and I feel like a big driver of that was that she was just so different and very unique from kind
Yes.
of what we're standardly reading across the genre. I loved how she's morally gray. I really enjoy when there's these multifaceted heroines that aren't just good or bad. And so would love to know if that was a conscious choice for you as you were going into it, or were you playing into certain expectations here and there?
I think at the time, like Romantasy was obvious, it's been around for forever, but
Right.
I don't think, reading much Romantasy at the time. So it wasn't like a conscious choice to try and fit certain expectations. It was more about having a well-rounded female lead, someone who was flawed as well as
Mhm.
really good at stuff.
Right.
You don't want a perfect FMC. It's boring.
Right.
It's hard to relate to. So
Yeah.
it was definitely, the conscious choice was in wanting her to be flawed and wanting her to have elements of her personality that were contradictory, to have her as a complicated woman. And we also see her, I think she's 24 when the book starts, possibly.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
She's 24, and we get to see her from 24 to 27. So we kind of
Yep.
get to almost grow up in her in a way. I feel like the mid 20s is a really interesting time in a woman's life. You know,
Correct.
we're past high school, we're past the beginning of university. Maybe we've got a job or whatever. And there's a lot of layers there that are really interesting to unpack. And so I
Yeah.
think that was more the conscious choice of wanting her to be a little bit older than all the previous heroines that I've written, but also she's just complicated like we all are.
Totally. And I think that dynamic of her just trying to figure it out and growing into herself and her arc was beautiful to read, to your point, because I think, as a person in her 30s, I've experienced a lot of that growing up and growing in and all of the things and still am. But I think as you continue to read FMCs that are like that, it gives you more of that permission to say, like, oh, we're all this way. Like, I don't
Mhm.
have to be perfect like this character or whatever that may be. So I really, really loved that aspect of how you wrote her.
No, thank you. Yeah, it
Was
was really fun to be in a more adult space than before.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was curious, did you put anything from your own personality, your own self into Thea? Was there anything specific?
I think, while I would love to be a hardcore warrior,
Yeah.
I'm certainly not a gym fanatic or anything like that. But when I think the part of her that is maybe a part of me is in her focus and her drive, and obviously I apply that differently to my life. But that ambition, that drive, that really wanting something, that was
Yeah.
definitely a part of me.
That's so awesome. Um, Although we love Thea and we related to her so much and we thought she was an awesome FMC, we do have to talk about Wilder and the romance of it all. And
Oh,
the
yeah.
readers on the internet are really divided by Wilder because of some of the decisions that he made. And so, did you purposely write him that way so that there would be a divided reader reaction, or were you shocked when that's what came out of it?
Uh, I guess something to point out is that I wrote, and I'm assuming we're talking about Vows and Ruins for the most part.
Yeah.
Yep.
When I wrote Vows and Ruins, that then didn't come out until like a little while later. So when people were reacting, I was already kind of removed from it in a
Yeah.
way that I think was quite healthy for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Totally.
like there's certain spaces that can be, not so nice for authors to be in.
Yeah.
Right.
But by the time Vows and Ruins came out, I had the distance from it as an author, but also I'd sort of stepped away a little bit from, platforms like Goodreads and
Mm.
BookTok,
Right.
because I didn't necessarily want to be influenced by, trying to people please, trying to
Yeah.
please the readers or guess what they want, because you're never going to be able to please everybody.
Right.
So Wilder, he it wasn't like I made his choices in order to divide readers, but I definitely loved doing that cliffhanger at the end of Vows and
Yeah.
Ruins, and that was always, ever since I had the idea for the whole series, I knew book 2 was going to end like that. Um, because it's quite a challenge to follow the same couple across 4
Totally.
different books.
Yeah.
You want to maintain that tension, you want to maintain the conflict between them, because that's the thing that gets us turning the page.
Right.
So, I at the beginning of the whole process, I did sort of have a brainstorm about all the different ways I wanted to end each book and how that would, feed into their conflict, how it would raise the stakes.
Okay.
So in that respect, that was the conscious choice.
Oh my gosh. I mean, you certainly had us turning pages, so
Yes.
I appreciated that choice.
Thank you.
I do think, like, similar to what I was saying about Thea, like, Wilder making these decisions that he obviously thought was right, and he was doing it in good conscience and
Yep.
whatever, and you're reading it as the reader, and you're like, "Come on!" Like, it makes for such a better experience and such a more well-rounded experience versus him just, falling in love and just doing the classic stuff for the rest of the series. So I
Yeah.
loved that. And I do think that dynamic of the, like, online versus not is really interesting. Do you feel like as you've started to expand into new worlds, which we'll talk about, do you feel like any of that has played into any sort of like internet reactions on your previous works or anything like that? Or do you feel like you've kind of maintained that healthy boundary?
I definitely have not maintained a healthy boundary, and that was more so
Fair.
between it's really hard when you're expected to be online promoting the books, and sometimes you end up
Right.
seeing stuff that you're not out there searching to see, because I'm
Right.
all for readers having their own spaces. It's just when you reach a certain point, those spaces start to bleed into your personal spaces as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Fair.
However, I will say that, the divided reaction, the conversation, that can only be a good thing, really.
Yeah.
It's it's generating conversations between
Yes.
people, debates, and it means
Totally.
people care. And
Yes.
that's kind of the point. So
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why
yeah,
I
I've
thought maybe
forgotten the
you did
original
it.
question
No,
now.
that's why I thought maybe you did it on purpose, because I was like, oh, she's a marketing genius because now everybody's talking about this book. But it is
It is
I
brilliant.
wish.
it is like a defining factor, I think, there's so much romantasy out there and we've read so much of it, and it did make your books feel very different because you actually were kind of like questioning the characters and questioning their motives, and like
Right.
like you're like, oh, these people, usually you put the MMC and the FMC on a pedestal and they're just like your favorite people the whole series, but like throughout your series I was like questioning every single character.
I am
Well, that's good.
interested in how you a slow burn as a reader is obviously a very different experience than a slow burn as a writer. But I'm so interested in how you write this slow burn that feels so genuinely earned. And like, as you're writing and you're going through the process, are you not eager to just have the burn? Like, I just feel like obviously as a reader, that's what we want. But as a writer, I'm wondering if it's like a delicious process or if you probably end up being like, okay, let's cut the tension and do this.
I think for me, a lot of it comes in the editing stage. So I tend to draft quickly the first draft. So I sort of have all the, core pillars of the story in place before then I can expand on emotional resonance, character development,
Right.
even things like the setting, because I find it hard to, work on one chapter and incorporate that all at once. It's like I have to step away, think about different aspects, and then layer it in afterwards. So
Mm.
with the slow burn, I guess it feels kind of slow burn to me anyway, because I am doing everything in stages and I
Yeah.
am coming
Right.
back to layer it in. And it's also where editorial feedback comes in handy. Like, in order to have the burn of the slow burn feel earned, we have to hit certain beats along the way. We have to have, I think it's called the 12 stages of intimacy, where, their hands brush, or, they almost
Yeah.
kiss, or, someone strokes their hair off their face, and,
Right.
little moments that then build that tension, build it. And then I think the culmination of all those things, when we finally get to, the big moment,
Yeah.
that's what makes it feel earned.
Yeah. That makes total sense. And again, as a reader, it's amazing. But
Yeah.
the payoff surely felt earned in this series. Like, it was just one of those things where I was like, yes. So it was very masterful.
You
Oh,
have
thank
mentioned
you.
a couple of times that you wrote these books a little while ago. You can't remember all of the specific details. So do you think if you were writing these books now as your current day, would you change anything about the romance and how you wrote the love of the full story?
Um, I think in broad brushstrokes, it would remain pretty much the same. I
Yeah.
do sometimes wonder, and I don't know if I should even say this, but I'm gonna.
Please.
I do sometimes wonder if maybe I went a little hard on the sex scenes in book 2, because book 1 had
Mm.
a slow build, and we
Yeah.
only got one main scene in that.
Yeah.
Then that might actually be a point where I let the sort of outside voices of romantasy kind of
Yeah.
sink in a little bit too deep. but, it all worked out in the end.
Us Romantasy readers love our spice, so that is fair. And I'm
Yeah.
sure if you gathered feedback, most of us would be like, nope, that was good. That was good.
Yeah.
That was good amount.
But the genre
Good.
has changed a lot, because before I do think that it was like definitely about the spice, and now
Yeah.
how it's evolved, like people really love the world building and the theorizing and all of that. So like I
Yep.
get your point.
But speaking of
100%.
the kind of world building and the lore, because it was so strong in this
Oh,
series.
yeah.
Like, I would love if you could walk us through the origin of the magic system, because as I was reading this, I was like, this woman is just oozing creativity. Like, I don't know
Yes.
where this is coming from. The war swords, the guild master, the storms, like all of these bones that you had from literally book one. How much did you have that mapped out from the start versus discovering as you went?
Well, firstly, thank you. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. The
I
world
did.
building, the world building is brick by brick to me. I think I started with the war swords because I really loved the idea of having this sort of guild of warriors, and then the hierarchy within. I'm quite a competitive person, and I kind of liked the idea of someone having to work their way up to become the best of the best, and then add in
Yeah.
the other layer of only men can do that. So what if a woman wanted to do that? Um,
Yeah.
and so the war swords and the hierarchy of warriors within that guild was probably the thing that came first, and then they needed a place to live and to train and to do all the cool stuff that they were doing.
Right.
So that's where Thezmarr as the place came into it. And I did a lot of research into sort of medieval fortresses and castles, and
Yeah.
I love all that stuff. And whenever I go abroad, that's the sort of thing I like looking at. The
Oh, yeah.
the
You get to
castles,
see
the
the
architecture.
castles and the old
Yeah.
churches, and there's always
Yeah,
50,000 of them you can walk to, and they're so beautiful.
exactly. Exactly. And I mean, New Zealand and Australia, we don't have history as rich as that in terms of
Yeah.
that kind of architecture. So whenever I'm in the UK or Europe, that's the sort of stuff I'm looking at and taking notes on.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, the world sort of built outwards from there. And then, who are the war swords defending the realm against? It's monsters, it's evil, and, having to create monsters from scratch as well, because the
Yes.
series didn't lean particularly on a certain type of mythology,
Yeah.
or so it had to be from scratch.
Right.
So it's basically me just sitting there designing my own monsters.
Unreal. I mean, I was just flabbergasted. I was like, I would not. These are truly the monsters that will haunt me in my
Yes.
dreams, but they are also so perfect for this series. So very impressive.
Have you always been
Oh, thank
creative
you.
like that? Like when you were a child, were you super creative, or is there something where that comes from?
I think I've always been a bit creative. Like, I've always wanted to be an author. I think since I was about 7 years old. And
Wow.
the books that I was reading when I was a kid were all fairy stuff. It was
Yeah.
all quests. It was all magic, adventure. So I think I've just sort of made a job out of what I liked as a kid, minus the spice.
That's everybody's dream come true. I love it. Well,
Truly.
like I said, was so struck by the whole idea of like the fate and the prophecy. And whenever I hear that somebody could figure out they know the exact day they would die, I literally lose my mind for an entire day. Cassie and I have argued
Yes.
about this in our friendship yearly. And so, where did that come from for you? Are you personally invested in this conversation as well? Or what made you want that to be the big question up front?
I think I just love the high stakes nature of it, and it has this ticking time bomb on everything, whether it's relationships,
Yeah.
stuff you want to achieve, just drinking in everything life has to offer. So it really puts that pressure on the character, which I really like. Um
Yeah.
it's weird. Like, I would like to think that if I was given, the date that I was going to die, that I would go out and just do everything and anything and just live life to the
Yeah.
fullest. But I'm actually the sort of person that would just be like, oh my God, now I need to make a list of all the stuff I need to do.
Oh,
And,
yeah. Absolutely.
you know, and just get instantly overwhelmed. So I would love to be like Thea, but I think I'm a little bit more high strung than that.
Yeah. We always say, like, if you went to like a psychic and she was like, I'll tell you or I won't tell you, it's up to you. Would you find out? Would you choose to know, or you would not want to know?
Oh, I think if I was put on the spot, I'd panic and say, yes, I wanted to know, and then
Right?
regret it later.
Same. I agree. Emily does not agree on this front. She consists, this is what we battle on annually, by the way. Because I'm like, what do you mean you wouldn't want that answer?
No,
But then to your point,
yeah,
I
I'd
would
be
probably
so
end up making the
scared.
list too.
Yeah, I would be terrified. I would spend my life like avoiding any danger and like avoiding anything bad that could happen. And then like, what kind of life is that? So I don't want to know. But I
I don't
love
know.
that question. And like, I've maybe seen it in like movies or literature and other places, but your book was the first time like it was boldly written, and I was like, I am obsessed with this.
Yeah. Yep. It was brilliant. And then the twist with it was also brilliant. We won't say
Yeah.
what that was, but oh my goodness. I would love to jump to the ending because, again, you have a huge body of work. And I would love to understand, like, after you finish the series, how often do you feel yourself looking back? And was there anything that you had to leave out that you still think about?
As for how often I look back, not often. I'm very
Mm.
much a forward-driven person. Like, and I mean, the thing is even when the book comes out, like say, Shadow and Storms, when that came out, that
Yeah.
book had actually been finished for however long before it came out. So I was
True.
already into whatever I was doing next. And I do find, like, for example, I got asked a while ago if I've listened to my own audiobooks,
Oh.
and I can't. I can't. It's like,
Really?
yeah, it's sort of like, you know, when people ask actors, do they watch their own
Yeah.
movies? Like,
Yeah,
it
that's fair.
feels like really cringy.
That's fair.
So I think, you know, by the time a book comes out and I'm talking about it, in my mind, I'm already on to the next thing. And that, in a way, maybe is a bit of a defense mechanism so that,
Mm.
you know, if it doesn't go well or if it's not well received, I'm already invested in something else and I'm not
Yeah.
as close to it.
Yeah.
I guess the exception is conversations like these when, you know, I've got re-releases coming out of books that were published however many years ago,
Sure.
and we're having that conversation again, which is, you know, what we're doing now. I'm also going on tour next week in the UK, and we're talking about the Shadow Prince, which is
Yep.
Yeah.
a prequel to Legends of Thezmarr. So I am finding myself coming back to books more often than I otherwise would have previously.
So
Ugh,
should we
well,
have read Shadow Prince first?
No,
ooh,
I mean it wasn't published first. Blood and Steel was published first, then
Yeah.
Shadow Prince, which was actually originally titled Slaying the Shadow Prince. It was part of
mhm,
a different series with a bunch of other authors. But yeah, it came out after Blood and Steel. And there's all different types of reading orders that have been sort of generated by
yeah.
readers. And there's one that I really like called the emotional impact order. And I think that means you read Blood and Steel, Vows and Ruins, and then you read Shadow Prince, and then you
Oh.
read Fate and Furies and Shadow and Storms.
Wow.
But really, really it can be read anytime because it's the story of Wilder's mentor. And
Yep.
Wilder is in it as a young warsword. It's obviously before he met Thea. And it's sort of how his relationship with his mentor got all tangled up, which then we
Right.
see in the Legends of Thezmarr as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not like required reading or anything like that, but I do think it's fun to get sort of little breadcrumbs and the world
Totally.
just gets a little bit bigger.
Yeah, we always like to ask if there's any characters you like left behind that you wanted to continue to write their story and continue to explore, but you kind of did that. You were like, I
Fully.
have some other characters that I want to write about, and you wrote the series, so good for you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was interesting off the back of Legends that I sort of realized that I'd been doing it since the beginning, was weaving in another romance between Torge
Yeah.
and Ren, who's Thea's
Yeah.
sister. And so by the end of Shadow and Storms, the next trilogy was already sort of waiting for me to pick it up. I do get a lot of requests for a Kip book though. Which
Oh. Oh,
yeah,
I would like to second that request.
which isn't happening as yet. We're moving on to other stuff, as you guys know.
Fair.
But yeah, it's, you never say never, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would eat up a Kip book whenever that comes across your desk. So full support there.
Thank you.
Well, I would love to understand that now that you kind of teed up that we're going into something new. After living in this world for multiple books, and I know you mentioned you like to kind of push forward. What is that headspace shift? What does that look like when you start drafting something completely new, completely shifting from where
Mm-hmm.
you've been at? Like, does that feel scary, or does it feel like you're giving yourself freedom, permission, all of these things?
I mean, all of the above, I suppose.
Yep.
So the new book, which is completely separate to Thezmarr as a whole universe,
Yeah.
like new world, new characters, all of that. I actually had the idea for this book, which is called Kiss of the Black Flame, around when I was writing Legends of Thezmarr.
Oh,
And so when I finished writing Legends, the choice for me was either write Ashes of Thezmarr or write Kiss of the Black Flame. And I kind of thought, in my ignorance, I thought writing Ashes would be a little bit easier, given that the world was already built and that the
Yeah.
characters were already there, and I
fair.
knew them all so well, and that was complete rubbish. It wasn't easier at all. But I am glad that I wrote that first, because it kind of gave me, or my brain, more breathing room to just slowly start, adding stuff to a document for the new series. And so
Right.
by the time I'd finished Ashes of Thezmarr, I had a huge document with all my ideas for settings, for characters, for plot, that then I could take and rip apart and put back together. And so it was like I wasn't staring at a blank page as such.
Right.
But
Yeah.
for the most part, I really took my time on the new book, Kiss of the Black Flame, because I felt like Thezmarr, it went beyond any of my sort of wildest dreams for how popular it was with people. But I
Yeah.
needed some distance between that and people's expectations of that, and then what I was doing, which was new. And honestly, I found it really refreshing and like a breath of fresh air,
Yeah.
because I was writing Kiss of the Black Flame without anybody knowing I was writing it. And so
Right.
it was just kind of me and the book and nothing
Yeah.
else, because I was still releasing Ashes of Thezmarr while all this was going on.
Yeah.
But it was like my own little thing for a long
Yeah.
time.
Oh, that's very sweet.
So yeah, it was really fun. It was really
Yeah.
fun.
What do
I'm
you
sure
want
that's
to
cool to. Oh, go ahead.
What do you want to tell us all about Kiss of the Black Flame? Can you tell us anything good? Maybe a little drop of something that readers could look forward to?
Well, depending on when this episode goes live, the cover reveal for Kiss of the Black Flame is on the 30th of April. So that's for me, it's tomorrow. For you guys, it's in like 2 days.
Yeah.
Of course.
So I'm really, really excited about that. It's one of my, if not my favorite cover of my catalog.
Oh my goodness.
And also, yeah, it's really beautiful. It's by Story Rappers, who's done some really big romantasy titles. And it's being published by Atria in the US, and they're doing a limited deluxe edition with sprayed edges, with foiled casing, with all the
do
bells and
love
whistles
that
that
here.
us
We love that
romantasy
here.
readers
we
love.
love that.
Yeah. So I am I'm really excited to share the overall package for that. It's going to be stunning.
Oh my
Um,
goodness. That's so exciting.
yeah. And it's also my first traditionally published US book. And they're
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I'm really excited to see it in your actual bookstores like Barnes and
Yeah.
Noble, Target, whatever else you have over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because my books previously have just been indie in the US specifically.
Right.
And it's really hard to get books into bookstores as an indie. So yeah, partnering with Atria, them being able to produce this beautiful edition, I'm still sort of like in awe of it that it's coming out and that we're revealing it in a couple of days. And yeah, just really excited and excited to be talking about something new as well.
Yeah. Totally. Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. That's such a huge milestone, by the way. Like that's to your point, like this is a massive feat. It's not easy to get traditionally published anywhere, but I know in the US, like the market is so saturated that, breaking through in that way is a huge, huge deal. We will also make sure to trek to a Barnes & Noble or Target to
and
send you pictures, by the way. I am
Thank you.
committing
That
to
would be
that
awesome.
right now. Yes, we will absolutely send you a million pictures. But we're so excited for you. We know that you've been a huge voice in the indie space in the past, so I would love to know, we have some indie authors in our audience. If for those of them that are watching this and tried to build a career themselves, what is something that you would want them to know, and what do you wish that someone had told you early on?
One thing I wish someone had told me early on was write what you love reading, which
Mm,
is, it seems really obvious, but I think you can get caught up in, wanting to make a name for yourself, wanting to be taken seriously, especially as a woman, you know, trying to be successful straight off the bat and find your own niche. But this career is a marathon, it's not a sprint.
yep,
And, in order to, if your goal is to become a full-time author or make money as an author, you need to think about longevity and what
right,
you are willing to continue to write over and over again. You know, do you want to write 100,000 word books? Do you want to write 60,000 word books? Do you want
right,
to write romance? Do you want to write sci-fi? Whatever it is, you have to really enjoy what you're doing in order
right.
to do the edits, in order to write the next book in the series or the next standalone, however, whatever part of the genre you're in. There'll be a specific, I guess, model of publishing that will suit you better.
Yeah,
But I think it definitely all stems from writing what you love, because
yeah,
it's the hours are countless how long you will spend on a book.
Mm.
And so you really need to love what you're doing in order to
yeah,
maintain that sustainability.
yeah.
So that is what I would say. And then I would also say, if you're indie publishing, don't like wait for the perfect time.
Mm,
There is no perfect time. The book is never going to be perfect.
Yeah.
And
sure.
I think, we kind of hold ourselves up to traditional publishing as this, beacon of high standard, but trad books aren't perfect either.
Right.
And, there will always be a mistake here and there. It's the nature of the business. It's the nature of publishing, especially when the books are 600 pages long.
Mhm.
Right.
Um, so I guess what I'm very ramblingly trying to say
No, I
is
love this.
don't get hung up on perfectionism, because it
Yeah.
doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
sooner you start publishing, the sooner you learn lessons as you go. Like, you're
Yeah.
not going to learn everything and then publish your book. You constantly learning. Things are constantly changing.
Yeah.
And so the sooner you start, the better you can become.
I
Ugh,
love that
I
you
love that.
say that you have to love talking about your book, because here you are literally 4 years later still talking about the same book. Like,
Right.
you really have to like your book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
Exactly.
musicians who cover their greatest hits and they're like, we've been playing this same song for 50 years or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
you probably got to be prepared for that. So
That's
I love
Yeah.
that advice.
In closing, Helen, is there anything that you want people to know before they read your books, before they dig into your whole catalog as an author? Anything they should know about Helen as an author?
Oh, that's a really hard question. Um, I guess prepare for twists and turns,
Mhm.
epic world building, and for me to put the characters absolutely through the ringer before the end.
Yes.
Can confirm all of those things.
Yeah.
I also
Well,
think that you should release your Pinterest boards with each book.
ooh.
I would love that.
I will think about that. They're
Yeah.
probably an absolute mess.
That's okay. So are
We
ours.
would eat it up.
That's real. That's relatable. Well, where can everyone pre-order Kiss of the Black Flame? And where can we follow along for more details on the release?
Yeah, sure. So you should be able to pre-order Kiss of the Black Flame from any of your favorite retailers. The ebook is on Amazon, and then this deluxe limited edition through Atria will be via all your major retailers over there. Wayward in the UK is also publishing it, so that should be on Waterstones and, all the UK retailers. So pretty much everywhere it should be available. And if you
Love
want to
it.
follow along, yeah, I'm super excited. And if you want to follow along, I'm pretty active on Instagram, and I also have a newsletter that you can sign up to on my website. And I send newsletters probably about twice a month with loads of behind the scenes news and art and all sorts.
That's awesome.
Amazing. Well, we cannot wait. And we, as lovers of Legends, as lovers of Helen, thank you so much for joining us, for talking through all of our questions. We really, really have appreciated it. And it's fantastic to get to know you and to get to see a little bit more of the magic behind the curtain. And we're so excited for Kiss of the Black Flame. We cannot wait. So we'll be cheering you on from here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a fun way to start the morning talking about books. So thank you.
Yeah.
We will see you same time, same place. Grab your blankets, grab your book boyfriends, and we'll see you then.
See ya.